Going into the studio to record a vocal live off the floor and a band live off the floor is really intimidating and one of the most challenging things that you can do as a sound engineer. And for me, it's one of the things that I love to do the most. And I haven't been able to do it since COVID broke out. This was the first time in 6 months that I was able to record a live band live off the floor. I was pretty nervous and wondering if I was even going to get what we wanted, which was everyone, including the vocalist, in the same room.
3, 4!
The most challenging part of recording vocals live off the floor is I was working with a brand new band that I'd never worked before, and how do I record these vocals so that I can have what I need to mix when there's a whole bunch of drums and guitars bleeding into his microphone? That's the challenge. That's what I was facing on this project, and until I actually heard the band sound checking, I didn't know if I was gonna have what I needed. I didn't know if this vocalist was going to be able to sing in tune enough for me to be able to use his vocal take and auto-tune it, because when you auto-tune a vocal mic that has bleed in it, you're auto-tuning all of the bleed and everything. So I needed to make sure that this vocalist really could pull off the tracks and have the chops to do it. And that's terrifying when you're first working with a vocalist. The real key to be able to record anything live off the floor, but particularly vocals, is to think about your mix from before the band ever gets to the studio. With vocals in particular, we have to look at drum bleed. If we have the vocalist recording in the same room that the drummer is, there's going to be drums in the vocal mic. So from before you ever hit record, you have to understand that's going to be there, and you have to choose mic placement and the mic type that works with the vocalist, but also will reject drums in a good enough way that you can do all the compression you need to do for a mix. You have to know that from the beginning. Before we ever got to the point of pressing record, I was dealing with Matt, the guitar player, who is kind of the de facto band leader for things like this. And they were saying that they really want a live studio session sound for an upcoming event that they were going to be streamed on. And this gave us some challenges. We definitely wanted it to sound like the band was in the room and they were playing together, which is in fact how we recorded it. If we needed to use a lot of auto-tune, everything that goes into the microphone, so drum bleed, guitar bleed, if you tune the vocal, you tune all of the bleed that's going on in it. And so lucky for us, Taylor is an excellent vocalist, and there was very, very little auto-tune that happened. There was a couple little spots, and he sang a full 40-minute set, and it was one take of the whole thing that we used. So having a vocalist that can pull it off, you have to be able to determine, can the vocalist be in the room with the band? If they can't, separate them out, isolate it so that you can do all the auto-tuning that you need to. In this case, we had a vocalist that had the chops to do it. Having a film crew come into this complicates things further. I have to change my setup so that I can accommodate them. The film crew needed to be able to have visual access to everybody. I couldn't take the vocalist and just surround him with sound absorbers and do what I needed. And I didn't even know if I could put the vocalist in the control room and get the effect that we were all going for from a video perspective. This was my absolute most concern, was making sure I could get what I need and give the other professional crews what they needed. Placement of the vocal microphone is really, really important, because there was times where he was singing and you could hear bleed of him singing in the guitar amps and the overheads for the drum mics. I placed him and the drummer exactly facing each other, which meant the vocal mic was facing away from the drums. Now, because we had a film crew in, I didn't have any sound absorption around the vocalist. I had some around the back of the drummer, but there was no absorption between the drummer and the vocalist, which likely would have given a bit of a better result, but we had a film crew in, so we have to be respectful to them. But also, placing things that way made it so when I was mixing the sound stage of the band, snare drum and kick are center, and so are the vocal, so they exactly aligned with each other in the room microphones, so that everything would feel like the band was when they were standing there. We started off with a Shure 58 microphone, which is a pretty standard microphone that you use when you're live on stage, which is kind of the sound that we wanted, but it sounded too dry on his voice, and there was a lot of sibilance, but it wasn't like high-end sibilance. It was just kind of almost, like a swishing kind of sound that we were getting out of his voice. And I wish I would have kept some of those files to show the difference, but I didn't. We just deleted them all because it was all sound check stuff. And right before we were going to hit record on the set, I said, because we could have dealt with the 58 and it would have been fine. And I said, no, I want to try one more microphone. So I really had to think about, this was kind of a moment of, do I speak up because I've got a Shure 58 that's doing a good enough job and a great vocalist, and we were just about to hit record with the film crew, and I said to the film crew, can you give me one more sound check song? And they were great about it, and they said, sure, no problem. And I switched out to the EV-RE20, and it just worked, and that's what we went with. And when I put that mic up, the film crew was like, wow, that mic looks sick, I want to use that one. And when it sounded great too, everybody was happy. So it's one of those kind of defining moments. Do we go with what's safe and what would work, or do we risk, taking things to the next level? And this totally paid off.
You're just another robot now, like everybody else, everybody else. Oh, I must be crazy. Oh, I must be crazy.
So I did a quick recording with the EV-RE20, and when I played it back, I put a ton of compression on it, more than I ever would when I was mixing, so that I could hear the bleed and how it would affect the microphone when I was mixing. Because remember, when you're recording live off the floor, everything that you do is about the mix that you're going to be doing and how your decisions are affecting it. So when I really compressed it, yeah, there was a lot of drum bleed in the microphone, but I was pretty sure that I was going to be able to get out of the vocal mic what I needed. The feeling when you get to the end of a project like this is just, it's huge relief. Oh my goodness, okay, I got this vocal to sit here like it needs to. He sounds great, and I haven't harmed the technique that he has, and we've mixed the vocal in a way that enhances the song, and it's something really, as an engineer, to be proud of, to deal with all these technical challenges. And now we've got to capture a moment in time where this full band was playing all at the same time, and they're reacting together in real time, and they didn't get to rehearse as much as they want to, so they're a little bit scared, and you hear that in the playing, and that's a good thing, where there is some tension there. They're they're a tight band, and they understand what they were wanting out of it, but having a little bit of fear for them and for me and for the film crew made everybody work together really, really hard, and it made the project stand as a moment in time for everybody.
Come on.